uh, Dr. Luisa Chaparro. She's part of our research group, and she's working with us in the security citizen security project. And she will talk about how to measure perception of security. And she's quite involved in this problem. Then, thank you for being here. Uh, Today we changed a little bit the schedule because we had in the morning a presentation in an international conference closely related to this project, and changed because of that. Okay. Then thank you, Luisa. You can share the screen as you want.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Please let me know if you see my screen now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there.
Okay, I put it in the purple screen. Okay, let's go. Well, thank you again. Today I give you an update about the project that we are doing about the design and validation of the predictive analytics of security phenomena and the coexistence for decision taking in Bogota City. This update is basically talking about the relationship between the perception of the security and that we quantify and the factual crime. Okay. First of all, I like to define what is the perception of security and what is the importance of doing a study on it. The study of the perception of security basically helps to understand the feeling of the citizens in the face of the risk and the magnitude of the consequences of it. In other words, basically help us to understand where is the fear of crime. It means that what is the emotional response that an individual will face if he or she was a victim of crime. The fear of crime could change in time and depends on many circumstances and experiences that the people have. To understand the fear of crime, we need to take into account factors and consequences. As factors, we have the victimization, that is basically if an individual suffers in the first person any type of crime. Also the vulnerability, that is all the conditions that surround an individual that made you more prone to be a victim of any kind of crime. Also, we have an indirect experience. This refers to the perception that gave by others, and the intensity depends the familiarity or the vicinity of the others. I mean, for example, it's different if you hear and notice a news or a complaint from a TV show, for example, or the complaint is made by your family. Yeah, depends on how you are, like you feel more near that complaint. You experience different the perception of the security. And also we have the environmental conditions, that is basically all the things that surround the place in which you work or in which you live. Depends how it's, for example, conditions like if you have light in the zones, or if you have security guards, or you have police, or so on. Then also we have the consequences of this perception of the security, and these consequences, for example, on life quality. It means like, well, if you feel insecurity, you will more paranoid about the places that you frequent, or on the contrary, if you feel safe, you go out more or visit more or frequent more places. Also, it have consequences in the social isolation that is quite similar, more or less, to the pandemic situation that we have nowadays. And it's basically, if you feel you're in danger, you prefer to stay at home, and you prefer don't go to places. You prefer to only go to places that you feel safe. Also, you could give some mental illness, like paranoid issues or persecution delirium, among others. And your mental health can be degraded by the perception of security. Depends on the place and on the time that you that we are looking this perception. And finally, but no less important, we have consequences over the economic and touristic situation of a city. You mean if you hear that the news told you that a place is so dangerous or have a lot of robs or there's a lot of murders, you say like no, you don't like to go, and basically decrease in the international and national inversion, and also increase or decrease depends on the number of tourists that you have in a place, and all of those depend on the grade of the perception. Okay. But what is this? How we measure this perception of security and where it's important? Well, first of all, I would like to tell you that the perception of security, as the name says, perception, is a difficult subject to quantify because it's very subjective. Traditionally, we implemented surveys to do that, like Cámara de Comercio survey, to ask what is the perception that the people have about the security in the city. It means that consolidate information is so hard because it's cost in time and resources. I mean, you need a lot of people to do this kind of service. And also consolidate information only in specific segments of the population at a particular period of time. It means like the service do not give us information like that we can monitoring constantly because it's once in a semester, and this not to give us information how change the perception of the security in the time. Well, as I told you, that the services are cost in resources, time, and this problem with the monitoring. And we need to think, okay, if we don't use the service, what is the source of information? And we say, okay, maybe the source of information that could help us to solve these problems are the social networks. And this is why we have here this, I put this picture to show you more or less. And basically the social networks nowadays have the particularity to transmit events and news related to any field in real time. The content generation and the easy ways to spread or viralización through the social networks is ideal source to obtain large volumes of data that help to understand what is the people's behavior. The work that we are done here focuses on Twitter content, that all of us know that the Twitter is like a micro blowing and also have a lot of data, a lot of accounts, a lot of users daily that can give us information, a good information about how the people give the complaints or feel about the security at Bogota. Well, Twitter contents could explain the kind of response that the community has when a particular event surrounds them, independent if it's talking about crime or not, and how the people receive, process, and interpret the information coming from the social media, the media content. Um, for us, the tweets are valuable assets to understand the people's perception, and and we use them to characterize the perception of the security that the people of Bogota have. Okay. Nevertheless, the analysis that coming from these social networks and the impact that the content have on the fastest spreading and they're highly related to the tone. It means that it's so different if a people wrote an aggressive tweet, or if you write the tweet in a normal way or a more polite way, in how the people respond or retweet or put the like or so on, or follow the new accounts. Well, it means that the perception of the security maybe like have or result in a polarization of the perception depending the event and depending the users or the accounts that tweet more. Okay, I put this image only to show you some examples of the tweet you can read here, like are considered in our work. And it's basically that remember that, okay, we are talking about Bogota, the contents are in Spanish, and we only take into account the tweets that talking about security issues. I mean, if talking about another kind of security, like alimentary security or so on, we discard it. Okay. To do our work, basically, this is the picture of our model. The idea is like, first of all, we use Twitter like a list in Twitter, basically, and this is what was performed by the Secretaría de Seguridad from March of 2019 until to April and 2020, more or less like a year and a little more. And the idea is like we obtain like around near to 1,700,000 of text that are geo-referenced that are in Bogota, yeah. And the idea is like then after we choose this these Bogota tweets for the listening, basically we choose and we filter, yeah, the keywords related to security, and a list of the Twitter accounts that of people and organizations that are influencers defined by the secretary. Additionally, these filtered tweets are again filtered by a list of keywords that are related by to security issues, and these keywords are defined also by the secretary, and that are keywords that basically meet the criteria that we are talking about crime and security in Bogota. After the first data labeling, basically we use like a machine learning classifier to also identify in an automatical way the tweets that contain these keywords, and we have finally like 106,000 tweets, and we work with that. After this second data labeling, we basically ask to experts to do two things. first to validate that the tweets that we have are tweets that talking about security issues, and also that please give to the tweet a number between 1 and 5 that give us an idea about the tone of the tweet. Well, this basically we have here. With this final list of tweets, we make a sentiment analysis in order to put the number or to quantify the perception of the security. We try a lot of things. We try the traditional one, I mean to count the number of the positive words that you have in the tweet, and also we try with a machine learning classifiers. We do the both thing in order to compare, and finally for this for analyze the relationship between the factual crime and this perception of the security, we choose one of those, and it's basically a multinomial naive-Bayes classifier using one type of facial extraction that is known like a bag of words, and to quantify what is the value of this perception of the security. After we have this value, I mean this labeling of the number from 1 to 5, we have a time series about it with the year that I told you that is the listening time, and we compare with the official databases in the same year and make this correlation model and looking if we have a relationship or not between the perception and the factual crime. Well, for the data acquisition, as I told you previously, we have two kinds. The first of all, and the principal is Twitter. I mean the tweets that we collect from a year. That also I told you previously, where is the treatment that we do with this data, the filtering, and the first one, and the refined filtering using the machine learning techniques. We basically have also the machine learning filter and also the expert filtering, I mean the manual filtering. This is so important because it's like the corroboration that we have the issues that we like to have in the tweets. And on the other hand, we have the official database that is we have more database for this study. We use the CIEDCO, that is Sistema de Información Estadístico Delincuencial, Contravencional y Operativo, for his letters there. And basically, in which we found homicides, aggressive behavior, and robbery in this database. And we compare these official records with the information or the perception of the security that we quantify through Twitter. Both sources of information, we have the same data, the same dates in order to compare it. Well, as I told you previously, I say that the perception of the security is highly related to the tone, and the tone is basically we measure through the sentiment analysis. The sentiment analysis essentially detects the polarity in the text, and in our case, okay, in the tweets. The analysis could be grained as you like. But for our study, we use 5 categories. Like we put the 5 for very positive, 4 for positive, 3 for neutral, 2 for negative, or 1 for very negative. This is our thermometer. And this figure basically is how we classify into positive, neutral, or negative a tweet depends on the previous manual classification made by the expert. Well, as I told you, we have many kinds of algorithms that you can use to do the sentiment analysis. One of those could be the role-based, that is the traditional one, and it's basically made using a manual craft rules, and you count the number of positive words that you have in a dictionary or in a list of positive words, and you compare it with your text. And also you do the same with a list of negative words, and you compare with your text. And the other one is the automatic one, that you have basically machine learning techniques, and you have a classifiers. And as I told you, we make we prove with four classifiers to two different types of feature extractions. And after we saw the results and the performance, we choose this multinomial naive Bayes using the bag of words. I don't go further in this topic, because I give you that in a previous talk in the seminar. But okay, we have and we quantify this perception of the security, that is basically the result of the sentiment analysis. But we like to know what is the behavior of the factual crime in Bogota. This picture shows you what is that behavior of the factual crime, and it's discriminate in three types of crime. That is the blue line, that is the homicides, the green one, the aggressive behavior, and the orange one, or I don't know if you see like a yellow one, this is the robbery. This is for a year, a little bit more, like a year and a month of data. And this is, as I told you previously, registered in Cietco. Nevertheless, I just to clarify that exists another database that is called NUSE, Número Único de Seguridad y Emergencias, that is basically the calls that you made to the 123. It's another official database, and in that database, the aggressive behavior is have a better registration than in this one. But I put this in order that you show what is the behavior and how is the many of the events that we have in a year. As you saw and as we expect, robbery is the most one, and it's maybe the most the people complain in the social networks, and that is the feeling that the people have about the security because of because of this type of crime. Well, to analyze the relationship between these, I mean the events of the real crime that are out in the official database, and the perception of the security that we quantify through the Twitter, we made a Pearson correlation between those. And basically, we saw what happened with each time series. I mean, we have items for homicide, one for aggressive behavior, one for robbery. These are only discriminate, that is the information in Bogota. I mean, we do not discriminate between localidades, because it's so hard to have the same information in the tweets. I mean, the tweets give you that is the tweets are wrote in Bogota, and that's it. It's so difficult to see, okay, maybe this person wrote in Usaquén or in Urbe. We don't know. And that's the reason that we don't discriminate the results of the official database into a localidades. We also take into like a whole information Bogota. And we compare these crimes, this official database, with the perception of the security, and we use the person correlation in order to see what happened with those. This gives you the information, and you see more or less what is their behavior. But let me show you a better plot, okay, to explain you what we found. Well, this plot is a mix of like three plots. Um, and the central part, I mean, this one, like the dots with these lines, yeah, um, shows the correlation using the whole time series. I mean, the whole year, and we compare the perception of the security, that is this point in the center, with each of the time series of the crimes. The thickness of the line, I mean this line, give us the information about the grade of the correlation, and also the number. If you see, the most correlation that we have here between the perception of the security is with any crime, is with robbery. Yeah, is the most one. Well,
Sorry, I have a question there.
yeah,
There you are correlating what the time series of the crime with the time series of the perception.
yes,
Okay, I get it. I get it. Okay, okay.
yes. And then we do the same, but now we don't use the whole data, I mean the whole time series, but we basically split the time series month by month, and that defined here in these lines that it made like April to November in these three. We made the same correlation. I mean, we took the perception of the security and the crime, but now we use a small time series. I mean, we split the data into a time. And also we have the numbers. As if you see now, the numbers maybe give better information about how is the behavior in the time, how is the correlation, because you know that the crime do not behave the same all the time. I mean, it's like by a seasons or crime, something like that. And we can see, for example, that in November we have a better correlation between this perception and robbery. But if we look for homicides, for example, is in September, or November also for the aggressive behavior. And
Lisa, maybe do you remember how what were the no, which were the months with highest homicides or these kind of things?
yeah, well, we have this more or less. That is this. Remember, that is from April to March, and for example, November, something like that in that period. Yeah, and you
Okay,
see, for example, we have a peak in robbery.
November.
Hmm.
Okay, great. I get it. Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Well, and also we calculate the p-value between the correlation, but now not with the perception of the security, but into the type of crime. I mean, for example, this 0.186 is between the aggressive behavior and the robbery correlation. And also this 0.0220 is between aggressive behavior and homicide. And the other one, this 0.003, is the homicide and robbery, and is the only one that passed the condition of the p-value. Uh, Basically, if we look those results, we can infer that, for example, robbery is one of the principal crimes that is reported in social networks, and it, for us, we have many hypotheses that depends of different factors. We think that the principal one is this kind of crime is so close to the population. I mean, it's more easy that you suffer a robber that you be involved in an aggressive behavior, for example, or like you saw a homicide. Yeah. Um, and we know that the people use the social network to express the feeling after he or she suffer a rob. Yeah, when you suffer rob, you are very angry, and you need to complain with the authorities, and also to alert the people that, hey, be careful, in that zone it's a band uh, of robs, and it's so danger that you pass by that zone, or so on. um, and at the beginning of the study, we think that the massive communication media, like TV news or the newspapers, uh, influence in a high way the perception of the security in the city. I mean, if you saw the news, you say, "Oh, I feel more in danger, or more safe." Depends. Uh, but we saw when we saw the results of the homicide, yeah, uh, we can unestimate the hypothesis. Why? Let me explain you. Basically, what is the form or the media in which you known about the homicide? Basically, from the news. Yeah, it's not like your neighbor talking about, hey, look, this in that zone happened an homicide. No, it's basically like you see the news, you see the newspaper, and say, oh my god, an homicide happened in, I don't know, in Transmilenio, or for example, this that happened like a week ago, that this balacera in the 76, and you see, oh my god, happened an homicide. But it's basically because you saw the news or you listen to the radio. And but if we see the number of the correlation is so small, and it's basically that we can say with this number that maybe the news are not influencing a lot the perception of the security, and it's another thing, another um, like a detonant that give the people the idea of the security or insecurity, but it's not the massive media or the that news or newspapers. Yeah, and because if the premise that was yes, that is very influenced, the idea is like we saw a highly correlation number between homicides and the perception of the security. But if you see here, is the opposite. And for us, it is a highly indicator that it's not the newspapers and the TV news are not on determinant factor in the perception. Um, and okay, in another hand, we can use like tweets, like a thermometer or of robbery, and give us that information to the decision takers to take action to diminish this type of crime. Um, uh, and and also that with this information, we show that the Twitter could have also a bias depending the type of crime, because of the vicinity of the crime in the people. Okay. Just to conclude and to finalize this talk, I want to emphasize that the perception of the security in the way that we measure, remember that we took the Twitter and make a sentiment analysis, and we take a number of each tweet in order to see how the people feel, so how the people see the perception of the security in the Bogota, could be useful, and could be also useful more if we would like to have a thermometer in the case of robbery. Also, tell that the Twitter could have a bias, because as all of us know, not all the people in the city use the Twitter. and not all the people that use the platform use it to make complaints about the security, maybe complaints about other things, but not about security. And can maybe it can reflect a part of the problem of the fear of the crime in the city. We are convinced that maybe if we could add another platforms like I don't know, Facebook, or of the comments that you have in the newspapers, we improve the quantification of the perception of the security in order to diminish the bias that have Twitter. Okay, this is an approximation that basically could help to the decision makers to take actions about a specific type of crimes and monitor the effects of the behavior of those crimes in the perception of the security that the people have invoked. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Luisa. Okay, we have time for questions. I have one just to start. Okay, you were telling us that there are some moments in the year in which you have higher correlation between the perception and some types of crime. Robbery was one of them. Okay, but we know that perception is a different thing that just the factual crime. Then okay, then you're telling us that in some moment you have like coincidence in some moments of the year, and in other moments you don't have this kind of coincidence or these kinds of agreement with the factual crime. What do you think could be the reason? Because if we believe that the measures of perception of security that we are constructing are true, then there is some deviation that is also important, no? I mean, there is
Yes.
some disagreement that is also important. Why you may have this kind of disagreement?
Well, we think that this kind of disagreement maybe because the how to say that, the under registered of the crimes. And for example, in some moments of the, if you saw the time series, we have a bad number in a perception of the security. I mean, it's a bad perception of the security, but you see the numbers of the factual crime and you say like, no, like, okay, like you don't have a lot of crime. Yeah. And maybe it's because the people and some of the tweets, if you read it, say that lose the faith in make the registration of a crime, and that could be a reason in why the factual crime that we have in the official database not correspond with the perception that the people have. Yeah. um, Other thing is like Twitter in specifically sometimes have like amplification of the perception of the security because of the people basically make a complaint, and sometime later also retweet the same thing that, for example, I don't know, like a week ago happened something in the city, and if you saw the tweets, maybe a small part, but also exists a part that today, a week ago, are retweet again the information that passed. Yes, and this is not the same thing that happen when we compare with the factual crime, because the factual crime, you register the crime when it happened, and that's it. But in the social media, you have the effect that like some avalanche or something like that that happens time later, and that's could be an explanation on why we have a disagreement some time to time, and depends also and the like how the how the crime was. I mean, it was very very bad. For example, like we have a homicide, for example. This is so bad. Like if I don't know, any put like information like, okay, I almost robber, but I am fine, or something like that.
Okay, get it. Then it's like the phenomena of spreading of information. Maybe
Mhm.
they're responsible for that stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, okay, I get it. Mm, I was thinking in 2 points. I want to hear your opinion about that. Sorry for taking this time, but it seems like this information about homicides is not, uh, unless with the hypothesis you tell us about big news media. I don't know, RCN, Caracol, all these big news media talking about homicides. Um, it seems like the decision makers should care about homicides, even if this is not reflected by the perception of security. This is obvious, but sometimes people tends to forget that you should care about the most, I will say, complaining of the most severe crimes instead of just putting attention to things like, okay, the city is suffering of that, but it's not the same an homicide that 10 robberies.
Mhm.
You cannot compare these two things.
Mhm.
Then the question is, I want to hear your opinion about what kind of information the decision maker can use. What advices you can tell him? Please take care about this, and don't trust too much in this. I don't know if you are, I don't know, the Secretary of Security, what you will tell him about our results.
Well, I think I tell him like the perception of the security is a combination of all the crimes that happen in the city, first of all, because sometimes you're talking about a homicide, or maybe you're talking about all the aggressive behavior, but it's a combination, and the perception of the perception of the security, a number or quantification, we give a number each day, and this number is the combination of all the tweets that the people wrote in a day, and talking about all the things about the security. This is the first point that I give to them in order to take care that is not only to refer to one crime. The second is like, yes, as you told, if we cannot compare an homicide with a robbery. Um, and we need to be clear to the secretaria that maybe is not very influenced in the perception of the security that we measure. I mean, like we take in with the tweets with the media, but it's an important point that that see and take actions to diminish that crime. And it's basically if you need to see not only the perception of the security numbers, but also the time series of the homicide. When you see that in the whole year are few, but I can say like only 10 days without a homicide in Bogota. The other days you have at least one. This is so 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 important to take actions now to diminish this crime. I know that the other ones, and we know that the other, for example, like robbery, we have like 150 crimes in Bogota per day. But I think the secretary need to take actions also to the crimes that are, I mean, like are not. How do I say that? Not contribute too much to the perception of the security, but contribute to the numbers of the factual crime that are important, like homicides. Also, it's important to tell them that the perception of the security is not only, I mean, if they want to diminish that bad perception and increase to a better perception of the security, um, it's not only like take into account the hard crimes like homicides, that is so important, but also the people feels like when you suffer a rob, and you saw that the police take the rob man and go to the jail, but at 2 hours later you saw the same guy outside like nothing happened. This is also a part of the perception of the security that we need to take into account, and this is not basically like more or less correlated with the factual crime. This is also an important part of the information that we not include in this perception of the security quantified, but also that the secretary of security need to know that the perception of the security is not also the people about talking about the crime, but also how the people saw the security and the legal procedures in the city. This is also a part that we need to take into account in the perception of the security, because the perception of the security is not only talking about a crime, the people are also talking about what happened with these legal issues and what the rob man, for example, goes and have like a 70 times to take the same man doing the same thing, and the man is not in the jail, for example. Yeah, it's some parts that we have to take into account to say that is like the perception of the security is a mix or it's compound but different types of crimes. For all types of crimes we need to take into attention, but it's more like a more more great the composition of robbery and aggressive behavior than the homicide, but that means it's not a reason to take the homicide in another like in another part, or taking the like to say no, diminish the crime or not take into account in the regulatory things or in the decision taking makers that they need to take into account.
Okay, great. Great. It's just one small reflection, because it seems like then we can remove from the perception of crime the effect of the crimes. I mean, like regressing out this stuff and the things that remains, it should be, at least ideally, it should be the information that is diffusion. But anyway, this is a different question. You have any other question? More questions? I know you are hungry, but don't want to get to questions.
Disculpe, yo tengo una pregunta, pero no podría intervenir en inglés.
Go ahead, Andres.
Ok, listo.
Then
Perdón. Yo quisiera saber cómo se filtra el comportamiento de rebaño con los tweets referentes a los mal llamados influencers. No sé si me explico bien. Digamos, por ejemplo, ayer al Tino Asprilla, a Faustino Asprilla lo robaron en la 78. ¿Sí? El público un tweet sobre hay que mejorar la seguridad y hay que proponer más, necesitamos más seguridad democrática y esas cosas, y pues hubo una avalancha así de tweets, de comentarios que llegó a ser trending incluso. Entonces, ¿cuál es el proceso con el cual se filtra todo ese avalancha de comentarios que generan esos tipos de influencers, por así decirlo?
Okay. I don't think if you want that I answer you in Spanish or English. For me, it's okay, but depends on you.
Yo te puedo entender en inglés, lamentablemente no tengo la misma habilidad para hablar.
Don't worry, that's okay. To do that, we, for the quantify of the perception of the security, we only take into account the original tweet. Yeah, that means that if we found the same tweet, like for example this trending topic, like 100 of times, we don't take into account that, because basically includes like noise in our results. We include maybe that we are talking the same, but with different different words or different accounts or different tweets. Yeah, this is a way that we diminish the effect of these trending topic things or these influencer things into a perception of the security. I don't know if this answered your question.
But for me, the point is that even if the Tino Asprilla was tweeting, was doing these tweets, this is part of the perception of security. I mean, if you are able, if you retweet these tweets of Tino Asprilla, it's basically because you have some kind of agreement with that opinion, and then you are so lazy to don't write the same thing, but you say just retweet. I agree with you, and I think this is part of the perception of security. Okay, this is one point. Then we need to filter at least for perception of security, at least for that argument. But however, we are working in a model that is able to pick this kind of retweets,
Yes.
which is the model of Christian.
Pero, perdón, profe, es que ahí también habría un problema y es que mucha gente no lo hace o sea, mucha gente no hace retweet solamente porque esté de acuerdo con eso, sino hay veces hay estrategias por ejemplo, de manipulación política para enfrentarnos a un enemigo. Por ejemplo, el mismo que ya le echó la culpa a extranjeros venezolanos de su robo y pues eso ya se volvió bandera para ciertos grupos políticos en las cuales decir, hay que mejorar la seguridad para evitar que esos grupos de extranjeros. Entonces ya no es porque están de acuerdo con que la percepción sea cierta, sino que lo usan como cierta forma de manipulación. Entonces no sé si es
I agree with you. I agree with you, but this is I think this is a different problem because you're telling us that there is an underlying mechanism that maybe is biasing consciously these results, and that's okay. That's not okay. That's the probably reality. But in our analysis, we are not considering that because it's hard to know that.
Yeah, and we consider these like these massive tweets in order to calculate or to predict how is the behavior of the perception, but I mean not in the number of the perception, not to say this is bad or good, but how is the frequency of the people that is talking about the same topic. Yeah, this is like you say maybe it's as a political strategy to do that, but we want to know also how the people move with a topic, and did we include those in the whole model to see what is the frequency of the people talking about into a topic. But for the perception of the security, we also basically we don't take into account the retweets. We take into account like the answers of the tweets, of the principal tweets, and not the cascade. The cascade, we take into account that for the prediction of the frequency of the topic that the people are talking about into the media.
Vale, gracias.
Okay, Astrid, do you have a question? I saw that you opened the microphone.
Yeah. Is there a way, I don't know, for future projects that you can filter the tweets with time words? I mean, something like en la noche me robaron or en la mañana me robaron. Something like you can say that people it has more fear to the night hours or something like that. Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, it's possible, and also remember that when you tweet and you have the information about who tweet, who is the responsible of the tweet, and also when. Like I don't know, you tweet, for example, like basically when you suffer a crime, you don't like wait a lot of time in order to do the complaint. You suffer a robber, and as soon as you can, you make the complaint. Say, okay, this morning, I mean like 7 a.m., but this in the moment is the midday. this morning I have a robbery in some zone, and basically we can use this timestamp to filter and see what happened with the perception by hours. The thing that we don't the thing that we don't do is filter by zones. Because this is so hard because we only see that okay, this is Bogota and so on in the geo referentiation, but not only the specific time, the specific zone that you say, okay, this guy suffered a robber in Usaquén, for example. Yeah, this is the only thing that we can.
Okay. Any other
Thank
question?
you.
Yeah,
So
I have
go ahead,
one
Camilo.
question. Um, do do you take in consideration the metropolitan area of Bogota? I mean, tweets from Mosquera, Chia, Bogota,
No,
that that is people that don't live in Bogota, but they probably have to travel daily to Bogota.
we don't take into consider those zones. We only take into consider the Bogota, the geolocalized in Bogota, and basically the most of the official records that we have in this CIETCO and also NUCE is that crimes that happen into Bogota. And is independent, that is the people from Mosquera or so on, but the crimes that happen in Bogota. And this also could be another bias because we don't take into consideration that people, but we know that it's a small part of the population.
Okay. You have in consideration this before, like uh, that percent of people that don't live in Bogota but have to travel daily to Bogota.
Well, this is a little bit difficult in the form that we filtrated data from Twitter. I mean, why? Because well, for the geolocalization is it's okay. I mean, it's a little bit easy, but for the content, why? Because you can talking about. I mean, like you live in Mosquera, for example, and you make a tweet, and your tweet could talking about something that happened in Bogota about the security, but also something security that only happened in Mosquera. And how you differentiate that? This is a hard thing to do because the content, yeah, not because all the things, the other things. It's because the content. Because I mean, it's an example. I create that. A tweet that say, hoy sufrí un robo llegando a casa. O hoy sufrí un robo en el trabajo. But you don't know if the people that maybe wrote in Mosquera is talking about Mosquera or is talking about Bogota, because not all of them include the word Bogota in these tweets.
Okay, okay, understand you. Thank you.
Okay, just yesterday, this week, the police announced that in the future we will have the Metropolitan Police of Sabana de Bogota. I will enclose all the region, Bogota, Sumapaz, and all the metropolitan region. Because now administratively there is a separation between Bogota. I mean, the police in Bogota is different to the police in Soacha, even if these two places are quite close. Then this, from the administrative point of view, is a nightmare. It's quite complicated to manage with this data. But there was a news from this was a news from this week, and was because of the murder of the people in Sumapaz. I don't know if you hear about that. The three people were killed just in the border between Bogota and Meta in the Duda region. Then they make a huge meeting for security, and they announce that. Then this question, it will have sense in the sure future. It will take I suppose like years, because administratively this is not an easy task. But in the future, we are going to talk about the security in the metropolitan region, and then all these questions are going to be relevant, because yeah, Bogota is not just the borders we know, but Bogota as a region is a whole. We have many things and a lot of dynamics here. But this is a future question. Right now, we cannot answer unless with the data we have. Okay, more questions? Okay. Okay, then thanks, Lisa. Thanks for the presentation. It was very nice. I want to ask you if this figure is going to be in the paper.
Yes, this is the figure that we're
Okay,
talking
and
about
that was
for the paper.
the one that you were asking if is too simple.
Yes.
Ah, okay. The thing we can do is because I think you have more information here. Is like we can make a single plot for month, and we can plot just the correlations which are high, because you want the message here is like correlation is changing across
Mhm,
time,
mhm.
but also the structure of this correlation. I mean, the interactions you have between perception of security and the different crimes. Then if you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, it will like eight of these small graphs, but some of them will be disconnected depending of the p-value of the correlation.
Mhm.
Then with this figure, you can discuss about how this thing is changing in time and how the connection are changing in time, because this is not obvious from the numbers you have there.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, because or even you can do even a central one.
Uh-huh.
It should be nice, nah? This is the central one, which is the whole correlation, and then you have a small the months,
Yes.
January, February, etc.,
Uh-huh.
around this central, and then you can see how the dynamics is changing. This is quite
Okay.
common in when we plot things in brain, because in brain we have this temporal dynamic. Then we cannot put a video in the paper, but we can put like the frames of the video.